So Resident Evil as a series has like 5 main protagonists, which is a lot. Now out of those 5 protagonists, you got Jill, Chris, Claire, Leon, and Ethan. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, Ethan just has the worst time out of all of them. Like, throughout the 2 games he's been in, he goes through, like, so much. Because first, his wife goes missing for 3 years. Then, he goes out to Louisiana, gets force-fed presumably human intestines, has to kill his wife, who isn't actually dead, but it feels like he killed his wife. And then, as if this wasn't enough, throughout the whole thing, he's just getting brutalized the whole time. Non-stop body horror. Like, he just has such a bad time throughout Resident Evil 7. And then it doesn't stop in 8 either, because immediately right off the bat, his his child gets stolen and his wife gets shot up by his friend, and then he has to go out to this remote village where he proceeds to get 2 fingers bitten off of him. Everyone around him dies constantly. And then out here, continuing to get like his hand cut off, you know, because that's just a thing that happens in that game. You know, escaping from vampires, slug baby, whatever else. Man, slug baby is such a weird thing in that game. Like, it's like the whole thing with Resident Evil 8 is that it's like built on Resident Evil 7's foundations, but it's not as scary. Like, it's a much more action-focused game. Like, 7 is the scary game in the series. The rest just aren't scary. I mean, like, obviously 4 isn't scary, 5 isn't scary, 6 lost the plot. The original trilogy on PS1 just, nah. That ain't scaring anyone anymore. The remakes of 2 and 3, and 1, maybe, but, like, they're still not, like, turbo scary, you know? 7, though. 7's the scary one. Although I think 8 got me to jump harder than 7 ever did. Even if 7 was scarier, 8 definitely had, like... It got me more times, you know? It's actually kind of weird that, like, there's an actual scary game in the series that was, like... was always meant to be scary, but never was. The Resident Evil 4 remake is slightly scarier than the original. Doesn't mean either of them are actually gonna scare you. In fact, 7 was like... It was actually scary, but it didn't necessarily scare me. Like, it was... Like, I experienced the scariness of the game without myself being afraid. If that makes sense. I don't know. But it was fun. 7's good. It really keeps everything moving, so it, like, really helps you get through the whole game. Like, you don't fall off the game at any point, which is definitely a great quality. Metal Gear Solid also does that pretty well. I think what makes a good Resident Evil isn't how scary it is, because if it were, then there'd be a lot of bad Resident Evils. What makes a good Resident Evil is just how good the direction is, I think. Like, how well directed and put together a Resident Evil game is, that is what's important. Like, 7 has a very strong idea of what it is, whereas 6, I feel like, they just kind of did whatever they felt like at the moment, and I think that's what translates to 4 being such a good game, because they knew what they wanted out of 4. I mean, after a lot of trial and error, they did accidentally make Devil May Cry as just, like, a failed idea for Resident Evil 4, which is a really funny story, actually. The fact that they did that, they almost made Resident Evil 4 scary. I wouldn't say it's the least scary game in the series, but, like, that's like saying Stalin wasn't as bad as Hitler. Like, yeah, but, like, neither of these games are scary. See, I think in terms of the best Resident Evil games, I mean, 4 might be the best. Like, it's a boring answer, but, you know, can you really say that 4 isn't the best? I mean, it's kind of hard to deny. Like, 4 is pretty damn good. I think I like 7 a lot. I think I might actually put that as my number 2. Because 7 is like, it's good. I don't think it's for everybody, because if you're weak to scary, then, I mean, I actually am. I'm surprised I actually managed to enjoy 7. because I don't like scary stuff, but I managed to detach enough just by like thinking about it like it was a video game and not like it was a horror experience, you know? Like, oh, I gotta go here next, I gotta do this thing next, and just anticipating all the everything scary. I think one day I eventually want to 100% Resident Evil 4. It'll take a while, but like that's how much I like the game. I just it's that kind of game, you know. Whereas 7, I might not, you know, it's I like it. I do. I really like it, but I don't think oh 100% 7. And I feel like 8 just isn't quite as good as 7. Um at least from what I've played of 8. I haven't actually finished 8. It doesn't really grab me as much. Maybe I'm just burned out from playing 7 like back to back with 8, but and the 2 remake, I haven't got enough into the 2 remake, to be honest. I do plan to, though. That's probably going to be the next one I beat. Supposedly, it's really good, so I'm hoping it lives up to that, because it does have a pretty good reputation. I will say, though, I got, like, a really, like, pissed off while playing the demo for the 2 remake, initially, because, I believe it had ink ribbons in it, and as soon as I saw that, I just got, like, so mad, because ink ribbons are just a bad gameplay feature. Like, they never should have been in any of the Resident Evils. Like, never take away the player's ability to save. That's, like, the rule of thumb. You never do that. It's just bad game design. Because losing progress is not scary, it's just not fun. Okay, so ink ribbons are, like, I don't think they ever should have been in Resident Evil 1. Like, that's not something that, like, they should have done, but, like, they didn't know any better. And I'm glad they did away with that for 4. I don't know if they were in 3 or not, actually. But they definitely were not in. They were definitely in 1 and 2, but not 4. And they're in the 2 remake, and I hate that because. But they did the right thing, and they made it only hardcore mode. That's something I can get behind. I personally would have put it behind like professional difficulty. I assume that's a thing in 2. I haven't, unlocked it, but I assume there's one above hardcore. I'd be kind of disappointed if there wasn't one above hardcore, honestly. Professional mode's still a little bit too much for me in RE4. I can play hardcore mode just fine. Now, Resident Evil 9 is coming out in February. And that's a pretty big deal. So it's doing, it is sticking to the Resident Evil, formula where every 3 games they change its style. So this one's in the style of 7 and 8. But it's also built for third-person mode, more so than 8 was. Which I really like that. Like, they're putting, like, the remake style third person in there instead of the shoehorned in 8 style, but they're also keeping it as, like, designed for first person, which I think is, like, the best way to do it. So third person's meant for action in this game, and first person's meant for horror, which is cool. They're doing another horror style Resident Evil, like 7 and 8. And you cannot tell me that Leon's not in the game. Like, he's not going to be the main character for reasons they've explained. Like, Leon would do, like, a backflip away from a falling bucket. He wouldn't jump out of the way from it, you know? He's not the kind of guy to get scared of anything. Not anymore. After, he got turbo PTSD in Resident Evil 2, but since then, he's become sort of the, Michael Bay action hero, dude. He's a little more Tom Cruise, you know? He's got a little bit too much of that in him. Um, so I think he's gonna be playable. I think he's going to be like Ashley in Resident Evil 4, or like Mia in 7, or a Chris in 8. Like, I think they're gonna do one of those where like you play as them for one segment. I think it's probably gonna end the same way that 4, 7, and 8. Well, not 4, but 7 and 8 ended, where you play as a different character at the end in a more action-focused section, and then you like triumphantly regain control of the main character, in this case, I guess, Grace. I think that's what they're gonna do. Just doing that prediction now, because that's what they've done. They really like doing like action sequences at the end, like the Chris section, the Mia section, the part in Resident Evil 4 where you like do the jet ski ride. Like, they really like doing that, and I think that's what we're gonna see again here. If we don't see one of those, I'll actually be kind of disappointed, because like that's how you end a Resident Evil game. I do want to see, um, like, how the plot of Resident Evil 9 is gonna go, because they've been like really mixing it up with the last few. So like the way Seven's plot went was completely different. Like, you're just one guy trapped in a house. That's all you're doing. It's such a small scale Resident Evil game, and I love that. Because you're not like trying to stop a zombie outbreak, right? You're not trying to do any of that. You're just trying to live. You're just trying to get out of this house. Like you're trying to get off of this family's property, and that's it. The whole game. You're never like saving the world. You're never doing any of that. And it also feels so alone. Like it's got this great atmosphere because like Resident Evil 8 doesn't have this. Like it's just 7. Like it's got this atmosphere of like you're the only person here. The only sane person at least. You can't trust like anyone except for Zoe, but you never see her until like a certain point. Like she's always just on the phone. And that's like a great thing because it really just adds to the like wonderful atmosphere that 7 has. Like it's a masterclass in atmosphere. Cuz if it had like other people, then it just wouldn't hit the same. If there were like other people trapped in this house, if there were like, but no, it's just you, the insane version of Mia, and then Zoe, and you don't have any sort of comfort in here, and I really like that because not being able to be comfortable is like the best way to build the horror atmosphere. Um, yeah, it's just really cool to see like how Resident Evil 7 like does things so right when 6 got so many things wrong. Like yeah, it's not Michael Bay. That's not like what we're here for. Yeah, 4 is the limit to how action focused you can make a Resident Evil game while still having it be a good Resident Evil game. Because at a certain point, as I said, the direction is what makes a Resident Evil game great, and that will just like you need you will not have a clear direction if you're trying to make a Resident Evil game an action movie beyond what 4 did. Like 4 and 8 aren't scary. None of the games are scary. There's moments that are kind of spooky in a lot of games. Resident Evil 1 Remake has a great spooky atmosphere. But nothing's actually scary except for 7. Really, that I think that's intentional. So the first 3 games were made with the mentality of scare the player as much as possible, but then the next 3 were just action focused. Make it fun, which I think is a great way to go about things as well, but not in like it didn't work out beyond 4 because after 4 they took it too far. I think they just like didn't have any tension. They didn't have any weight to anything you were doing because you were never under like a serious. You never felt like you were under a serious threat. You know, you were always like just kind of there along for the ride. Just oh, I wonder what the game's gonna do next. Instead of oh no, what's the game gonna do next? That difference is like crucial here because tension is where Resident Evil is built. That little gap between comfort and discomfort, where it's fun to play still, but you never feel at rest. You never feel like you're sitting back and slaughtering. You feel like you're fighting for your life. That is where Resident Evil is at its best. You can't ever be safe in a Resident Evil game beyond like brief moments. Like obviously you have to feel safe sometimes. There has to be like the safe room is a great example of how to do it right. You can stay there for as long as you like, but you're gonna have to keep going, and it's not gonna stay like that. And if it did stay like that, it just wouldn't feel right. Now, I'm not saying a Resident Evil game has to be scary. I don't really like being scared, but I think a Resident Evil game has to have like tension. It has to at least pretend to be scary, even if it knows that it doesn't actually want to scare you. It has to just pretend that it wants to. That's why 5 and 6 fell short, because they're just not actually scary. And I think that's why like sort of hiatus between 6 and 7 was very warranted. Like they needed to take some time and like rethink everything. Like they and they definitely did. They definitely made like something amazing out of that. Like I think bringing it down to a smaller scale, which was counterintuitively the best decision. Make it feel small. Make the player feel like they're not even a part of this world. They're just a part of a tiny piece of it, which somehow was actually what worked in just establishing everything. You're pathetic in that game. You're trying to get out of a house and you can't do that. And I think that's why Ethan Winters works so well. Because he's just a normal guy who somehow got dragged into all this. He never wanted to be a Resident Evil guy. He never wanted to be Leon S. Kennedy. He's not a police officer. He's not like a reporter. He's not like searching for his Marine brother or anything like that. He's just a guy who's like, who happened to stumble into a Resident Evil game. And I think that's like the perfect character for Resident Evil. None of the protagonists ever like wanted to fight zombies or plague victims or whatever, but like they had to. There was like they're all forced into these situations. That's the general Resident Evil plot. Like something bad happens. Here, look at this. Look at these couple of people as they survive it. That's always the plot. Like from 0 all the way up to 8. But like Ethan's thing was just so small, so insignificant. Like it sort of humbles you. Like you're not Leon S. Kennedy. Ethan is never that. He's never gonna do a backflip. He's never gonna be like pretty boy with the nice hair, action movie hero. He's never gonna do anything like that. Cause he's Ethan Winters. He's just a guy. He's a self-insert almost. And I really like that. That's like the perfect Resident Evil. Not saying that I like it more than 4 though. I really like 4. But it is definitely my second favorite Resident Evil. It's just, I think they refined it the best in 4, but I think the direction was the best in 7, you know? Like 4 did better with what it had, but 7 had something better to work with, I guess, if that makes sense. It kind of doesn't, but I think the reason why I love Resident Evil so much is because the games are just so, like, well-rounded, good games that are always, like, they have everything. And I think that's what a lot of games are great, but they don't have everything. But I think Resident Evil does everything right. Like, it's good at everything. It's jack of all trades kind of series. If you're playing a Resident Evil game, then every part of it is good, except for 5 and 6. Again, that's why 5 and 6 weren't as good, because they started neglecting certain areas of the game, which was like a major problem. If Resident Evil like skipped out on something, then it wouldn't be Resident Evil. Like it has to have everything that a Resident Evil game has to be a Resident Evil game. It's a very specific mix of everything that truly makes like a good one. There's a lot of like tiny little game design decisions that just make a Resident Evil feel right. And I think it's just a beautiful like concoction in the end of just like little decisions that really make up the whole thing. Because think about like if you took away say the safe rooms and you just had manual saves in Resident Evil 7, would it be as good if you could just save wherever? I don't think so, because there would be no tension. Not to say that like ink ribbons are a good design decision. Again, I hate ink ribbons with a burning passion. But that's the idea here. Like that's the main idea. Just the tiny little things are what gives the series its special je ne sais quoi, I guess. That thing you just can't quite put your finger on, but you know it's there, and it would be completely different without it. It just feels wrong to play a Resident Evil game that is missing anything. Like, one of the original concepts for Resident Evil 4 was for there to only be one enemy throughout the whole game, because they just couldn't really do it right with what they were planning on. Just so to only have one enemy, like just Nemesis out of RE3 or just Mr. X out of RE2, that would be like that. I think that would be too far from the series. Like, there's a reason they didn't do that. Not to say it would be like a horrible decision or anything for like any other game, but for Resident Evil, like it's such a fragile, delicate balance to to make a Resident Evil good that I don't think they could do just the one enemy thing. I think it would like just shatter the whole balance there. Resident Evil 7 actually got close to it though. It didn't do the same thing, but it got close because it was missing most of the enemies. Like there were a few enemies, but for the first half of the game, there's almost none. You're just trying to escape. And that might actually like disprove everything I've just said because it actually worked so well. It didn't feel quite right though. It didn't feel as much like Resident Evil, and it saved it by having enemies later on, I think. Like if there were no enemies at all other than the family, it would be like sort of weird. Like I don't think it would be able to call itself Resident Evil. You know, I've talked a lot about like how much I love Resident Evil 4. But I don't it's definitely not perfect. It's just not. Like there are parts of the game that I would consider it sunshine moments. Like the parts that are like Super Mario Sunshine, it has a lot of them. That's what they're named after. Where you just when you get to that part, you're just not excited to replay it. You just don't want to have to go through this again. It's just a slog. It has those. Specifically in the middle third is its weakest. The castle. Um, the island is cool. The village is like a great intro. It's like got a wonderful introduction to the game. Just the opening hours. But the like the later on, like halfway through the game, it does have like it does get a little lame in there because there's just like parts that aren't quite as fun. It's just a tedious thing. Whereas something like 7, I feel like has less of those, but also you can't skip cutscenes in 7. I thought that was well, no, I didn't think that was weird actually. It made sense because 7's very like unbroken first-person narrative. 8 lets you skip cutscenes because it's more obvious when they are cutscenes. I don't know. Maybe I'm just pulling that one out of my ass, but to me at least, it kind of felt like when it was a cutscene in Resident Evil 7, it tried to hide that as much as possible, whereas it didn't do it as much in 8. I think okay. Back on the topic of like what makes Resident Evil, I think there's a couple of things, right? It has to have horror in some way. It doesn't have to be scary, but it does have to at least pretend to be. It has to have action as well. Like it has to have gunplay and all that. Like copious amounts of violence, naturally. And it also has to have puzzle solving. That's a thing. And it's got to be like a linear sort of thing. It's got to be a Metroidvania style. Like it's linear, but it's not like a straight line. It has to be a Metroidvania. I think the plans for Resident Evil 9 to make it open world that was like being discussed, I think that never would have worked. Like it never would have worked for mainline Resident Evil. It's just not that kind of series where like you can make one of the entries open world and it like stays the same because Resident Evil is a series of Metroidvanias at its core. You wouldn't immediately think of it like that, but yeah, it is. It's like how you wouldn't think of Jedi Fallen Order as a Souls-like, simply because it's not difficult enough until you turn up the difficulty. You don't realize it, but like, yeah, it is in fact Metroidvania, and it has to be that way for it to actually feel like Resident Evil. You can't make an overly linear Resident Evil, and you can't make an open world Resident Evil. It has to be Metroidvania, or else it won't, like, it'll feel off, I guess. Like, you keep coming, like, Metroidvania is characterized by you keep coming back to the same areas, but like collecting new things to like unlock new areas from there. You're slowly expanding a map and you're like circling back, doing all this kinds of stuff. That's how it works. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited for Resident Evil 9. I think it's gonna be really good. Cause they're going to the 7 and 8 style. 7 and 8 are good. So it's gonna be a good one. A bad Resident Evil is a rare thing. At least a bad mainline Resident Evil. As a side note though, I think they should like re-embrace the numbers, because there's an 8 in the Resident Evil 8 logo, but it's just called Resident Evil Village, which I don't like. And there's a 9 in the Requiem logo, but only when it's like animated, because sometimes a Q in Requiem turns into a 9, which is a strange choice, but like It's not horrible. They still got the 9 in there. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say. So, I don't know if I'm going to do another one of these, but if I do, see you next time.